As most of you know, but unfortunately you didn't see, the commemoration of 9/11 that we did here about 2 weeks ago, and we had two performances, the 10th of September and the 11th of September. And Stelio, he was the producer, but he was also at the time shooting two films that he was in. And he was producing that show and working on two films. That's hard to do, but he did a wonderful job. He got all these very experienced, wonderful actors to come in and read this play called 110 Stories by Sarah Tuft. And it was just wonderful. We sold out the theater a week before we did it. And every night the place was packed, and standing ovation every night after we did it.
First of all, I guess this is just a tangential note. Stelio, thank you so much for putting up that show, and thank you, Bill, for having it here. Because I was there, and I was so moved by the piece. I've seen so many readings. I've been an actor for a long time, and I've just never seen something that was so intimate, and the actors were so activated, and I was just blown away and riveted. So thank you very much. Oh yeah. My pleasure. How did studying with Mr. Modica, and how did the Meisner work? How did you integrate it in roles, and how did it inspire you?
He would call me in, and he would bring in a reader for me. He wouldn't just work on it with me alone. He'd actually bring in a reader, and he'd have the reader work on my material for my audition. This was way before the days of self-taping, way before it. And that caused me to listen too. Because in addition to getting his tweaks and his notes, and a lot of times he would probe, he'd ask questions. Having that reader there and reading it out aloud and being able to listen and then bring everything that carried me into the scene was just huge. I'd never done that. He would take the repetition and apply it to the cold reading process, which could then be applied to an audition where, okay, you look at a scene, and I already had a process, so to speak, for what had worked for me. But I never really learned to listen properly till I started working with Mr. Modica. He would drive things home in a way that no one else could. He'd say, the dialogue you're doing right now, there's just garbage coming out your mouth, and I want you to think of it. Everything you're saying is either steak or potatoes, and the whole class would laugh, and they'd be like, this guy's out of his mind. He's been teaching like 40 years too long. Like, what are you talking about, right? He'd go, when someone gives you a potato, you bite it, it goes right down. Everyone would go, yeah. He'd go, when someone gives you steak, if you try to swallow it without chewing, what happens? Well, you choke. You can't. You have to chew it. And sometimes, depending on whether it's rare or well cooked, you might have to chew it a lot more. Then it goes down. So in terms of dialogue, in terms of a scene, somebody's either going to feed you steak or potatoes. If they feed you potatoes, don't make steak of it, because that's not what it is, right? But if they feed you steak, you take the fucking time to chew it, understand and remember what it tastes like, and you'll know when it's ready to go down. And to me, that was just the most profound thing I'd ever heard, because I'm going, every piece of dialogue I'm ever going to do now and for the rest of my life, not only can it never be vegetables, right? But I can't over-chew it and make a meal of it, but at the same time, I've got to take the time to understand when there's weight behind what I'm saying. And I happen to play a lot of those characters. He would do the spoon rivers. That blew my mind, and it was very similar to the way Bill did it. There was an emphasis that you come into the scene with where you need to be, where it's going to end, and that takes you through. It takes you through what you're doing. And until you've worked enough to either get direct offers for work where you don't have to audition for them, or you're coming into producer sessions, or you're going right to network, or you're testing, you're going to have to audition a lot. You're basically a professional auditioner until that happens. So having that kind of wisdom and applying it to your audition helps you have a process, and it did for me. It taught me to listen, because in addition to having Mr. Modica say, repeat, 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 I also got used to hearing him say, the other person has to repeat when what they're saying isn't honest. And often, you'll be in a room with a reader, and literally it'll be like right here, and you have to get what you need. That's on you, that's not on them. So, but that comes from great listening, because you know if what's coming out of their mouth isn't honest, but that's not what's going on camera, it's you. And you have your 90 seconds or your 2 scenes or your 8 pages or whatever it is. That stuck with me, but I wasn't purely Meisner. I'm about to get slapped now. I wasn't purely Meisner, although wait, no, you can't, because you were at the Actors Studio, so I'm good. I had, on my own, just developed this thing that worked for me, for everything that I did, which it was 3 basic things. The first thing was, what drives my character at their core? What are they being driven by? Why are they here? What they're seeing before this one that just happened? What brought them in here? Is it greed? Is it guilt? Is it anger? Is it vengeance? Is it pride? Something's driving you. The second thing is, what's my need from the other character in the play? What do I need to get from you? What is it? What is it very specifically that I need to get? And the third and final thing was, what's my opinion of that person in the scene? Because I wouldn't say that same dialogue the same to you as I would to you, to my wife, to my 9-year-old daughter, to Mr. Modica, to whoever. So I combined those things with everything that I'd learned from Mr. Modica, but I've worked very hard at, when I first came to this country, I spoke like this. And this is not a joke. I actually went in for an Italian-American gangster from New York. And the casting director, she goes, okay, who are you here to read for? And I go, no, I'm here to read for Joey, the mafia guy. She goes, I'm sorry, who sent you again? No, it's my agent Barbara. The character from Brooklyn? Yes, no, the character from Brooklyn, yeah. Just leave your headshot. Thank you so much, we'll call you. That was a huge lesson for me. And I already spoke several languages coming from a different country, so the ear was there. But I was very disciplined. They had this amazing store called Applause, just like Samuel French, that would sell not only plays, but here's how you do an Italian-American accent. Here's how you do a New York accent. Here's how you do an American. So right now, this is a fake accent, but it's a real fake accent for the last, 10, 12 years, because I was always thinking in my South African accent, and that's so hard to do, because you're thinking of it here while you're working on the material, but then you still have to transition it. So I'm like, I can't think that way anymore. I literally train myself to do it, because the tendency whenever someone does an accent is to go over the top. And you'll see it with people in LA playing New York characters. They'll be like, how's it going, Jimmy Potato Nose? Check out Vinny the Hairpiece. He's standing right over there. And you're like, what the fuck? Is that guy like, is he okay? What is he on? If you play it subtle, it's a lot more realistic. And living in New York City, yes, you have the guy who's from Brooklyn, who's blue collar, but he's not going to speak the same as the guy from Staten Island or Manhattan, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to be specific with it. But no, it took a couple of years, and I always learned. Mr. Modica, man, it was like a chisel. He would chip at me. He'd say, take what you do very seriously, because your credibility is everything you have. But don't take yourself seriously. Make it about the work. And that's one other thing Mr. Modica did. He made it about the work. He made it about the work. And the first 5 months I was with Bill, I watched the West Coast actor come on stage and do work, and it was different than the East Coast actor. It wasn't better or worse. It was just very different, very different. And watching the notes that you'd give and how you wouldn't let people get away with things either, but it was different. Yours was more of a, Mr. Modica, I think, would break people down in order to build them up. I think Bill builds people up in order to break them down. And I learned a lot from not just the feedback I'd get on my work from Bill, but I remember some of the exercises you'll do with the repetition where the guy's at the door and you've been given your activity and you've got to walk in and do it. There was one case, and I don't remember who this, not that it matters who the student was, but he's like, why did you pick that activity? Is that activity true to what the character's doing, or is it just because I told you to pick an activity? He would take it that much, he would take it that detailed, and then, sure enough, the actor made a different choice. And I think the activity, the second time, was so much more interesting. It was literally something like with the guy's nail, and the scene came right from here, and it was fascinating as opposed to what was going on before. So watching his notes of how you approach everything, even with things like that, was all of that from Meisner was just massive.
I was wondering what made you decide to expand out beyond just being an actor and also producing, and if you can kind of talk about the different hats you have to wear and kind of the different skills that you have to build up to be able to do both, not necessarily at the same time, but career-wise, you know what I mean?
Yes. Once I knew what I wanted to do for a career, and by want to do it, I didn't just mean I had the desire, because everyone has the desire. You have to know exactly what it is that you want to do. You have to know what it is that you're connecting to, that you're able to tell stories with those kind of characters. You have to know exactly what medium you want. You have to, it's so much more than just desire. So it was only once I already knew that I had chosen this as a career, meaning storytelling, acting, definitely not producing, and that I had gone through many years of, everything, all the Law and Orders and just dozens of plays and working with phenomenal artists and seeing how they were producing more, that I understood why it was that I wanted to do it. It was because I felt, and I'd heard from casting directors who bring me in, they keep me in their inner circle, and I'm very lucky in that before the stuff goes out to breakdowns or I'll just get a direct offer, because they respond to the work, that I started to question. The business sees you as a product. An agent and a manager need to know, how am I going to make money off this product? How many of this product do I have? What are the 6 or 7 things that this guy can do? Okay, obviously he needs to be able to act, but does he have, or does she have, this something or that something? And how many of those people on our roster do we have, right? That doesn't mean because you do something a lot and do it well and make them money and make good money yourself, it's not always good, because the agent gets 10, the manager gets 10, the entertainment attorney gets 5, then you got to pay taxes, and then you're left with like ice cream money without the cone at that point. Yeah. But you want to work on stuff that you want to do, passion projects. 110 Stories is a passion project. It's obviously not a money project. And the strength of my wheelhouse is roles like Bolivar, that are broken, that are vulnerable, that have lived through pain, but I'm 90% of the stuff I've done that's done very well. The recurring role I played on AMC's The Making of the Mob, I'm playing Joe Masseria, who's one of the most notorious gangsters. He set up Lucky Luciano. The character is brutal. Just, he kills people, and like makes them suffer first. The Law and Orders, anyway, the body of work over 80, 70, whatever it is, was that mostly that, because it's the path of least resistance. They don't have to pitch you to a casting person and to then see you in a different light. And then the light kind of went off for me, and I said, I understand why there's plan B. I understand, meaning Brad Pitt's production company. I understand why Charlize has Denver and Delilah Productions. I understand why Natalie Portman has Handsome Charlie. They're called passion projects. They're stuff you want to work on that means something to you. Parts that you want to play, stories you feel need to be heard. I don't produce anything that I'm not in. I'm not technically a producer. I bring in certain elements. I can bring in a ton of actors that have sales value, that sell all over the world. I can bring in great directors. I can bring in DPs, this, that, and the other. I can't bring in money. I'm fucking useless at that. Like, I'm just clueless. I don't have access to financiers. But I noticed that a lot of these passion projects that were being done by A-list names, again, some of them friends, were an opportunity for them to step outside of, okay, this is how the business sees me, but this is what I want to do. And sometimes it's a marriage of the two. But I thought, I'm actually going to, in addition to my agent submitting, my manager submitting the direct offers they already bring me, I'm going to start pursuing projects that I've either written myself or like 110 stories that I've been an original cast member, but as my career grew and grew and grew, I have the ability to put up myself. And that's how the producing happened. It wasn't just necessarily producing to act more. It was, here's something that I want to do. I've shot and killed people and died myself like 50 times already. Like, how many different ways can I play this character? And you still find ways to do that, and it's still fantastic, and you work with different people, and it's called show business for a reason. It's a business, you have to work. But that led me into the producing through all of the relationships over the years with all of these actors. And more often than not, you'll work with the same people again and again, and you'll show up and audition, and it's kind of like, okay, which asshole's getting it this week? It's one of us, but we don't know. You want to be able to find something that you know you can do well, that speaks to you, that has to get out there, so you do it. And I have 3 or 4 of those passion projects, but the last few years, I've gotten into producing films as well, and that's a whole different animal than the stage. So that's how it happened, and I'll have producer credits in films sometimes because you take a project for different reasons. You take a project for the money. You take a project because of a great character. You take a project because of an actor you want to work with. You take a project because it shoots where you grew up and you want to film there. But ultimately, when these opportunities come up, you have a chance to say no to some of them because you choose to work on stuff that means something to you, and you're the foundation of it. You then take it to other people and get them excited about it, whether it's directors or whoever, and you help them come along. And I'm sorry I keep going back to 110 stories, but because so many of you are familiar with it, obviously you were such a huge part of it, that that's how that came about. But it took, those things aren't easy to do because you're using a very different skill set. You have to, anytime you have a chance to learn anything about the business, whether it's cinematography, whether it's what a gaffer does, what a line producer does, who puts the budgets together, take it with both hands. Anytime you have a chance to go on film, do it. Even if you're not right for the part, you're not going to get what you're auditioning for. That's not really what you're there for. You're there so that you can do your work and people can see it. It's your sacred moment in between the take, the minute and a half to 3 minutes that you have. More often than not, you're not going to get what you went out for, but that person who saw your work when you did connect, even if you weren't right for it, if you committed to it, if you were truthful with it, they're going to bring you back in. They remember that. That's their job. Their job as casting directors is to find diamonds in the rough or know what actor excels in what media or what genre or what have you. They're our best friends. We're so lucky. Without them, I don't know where the hell any working actors would be or any celebrities would be. So oftentimes I will partner with casting directors in my projects, and not for their access to talent, but because some of them might want to produce themselves. So I know it's a roundabout answer to the question, but it comes from a track record of relationships. And those 10, 15, 20 years, people get to know your work and they come to you and they start responding to you and they want to know what you're doing next. And put stuff up, because if you rely just on your agents and your managers, there's a lot of waiting. And for me, I can't sit still. I'll go out of my mind. I have to constantly be doing something creative. I will find work. I will work on a monologue. I will put up readings and plays and a series, reading series.
In the profession of becoming an actor, there's no formula that you can follow. The profession of acting is not like that. There's no guarantees. And life is going to come along, and you just can't be sure about doing it in any way except just see what happens and try to do your best and become as good as you can become and see what happens.
Such a great point,
Jordan.
Bill.
Poor Jordan.
Why?
I was talking to him today.
Is there another part to what you're about to say, or?
No, just that it's, you know, it's difficult. It's difficult. There are no guarantees.
It's very hard.
But you can't help it because this is an unconscious drive that you have, and you have to do it. And you can't be sure about it. One man's meat's another man's poison, so he did it one way, and you know, you're going to do it your way.
Yeah, you are going to do it your way. There is no, just because it's worked that way for me, there is no formula. The one thing I would say you have to keep in mind is that it's a marathon. Take that pressure off yourself, because you will drive yourself freaking nuts. It's not a sprint. And for every story you hear of overnight success, there's hundreds of thousands of great actors that people have never heard of. I've worked with some of them in Mr. Modica's class. There is no formula at all. But if you do something well, become great at it. And if there's things you struggle at, improve them. And people respond to.
Yeah, Edward Albee, who just died, was a great playwright. He said, my plays are about people who give up too soon.
So, in your experience, I'm sure you've come across a scenario where you have to work with an actor who hasn't trained as hard, maybe isn't as disciplined, or maybe just doesn't have the raw talent and might not give you what you need as far as potatoes or steak. How or what are some techniques that you can use to work off of somebody who's not necessarily giving you everything that you would need to fully encompass the role that you're given? Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. It's a great question, and it's even broader than that, because you'll often work with people who are A-list names that don't even know why they're famous. And sometimes they will dial it in, man. They will dial it in. They won't even be there for your coverage. They'll do their coverage where they're on camera, right? Because the way stuff is shot, for those of you that haven't been on a set, it's all about coverage. You're going to start with your wide, right? And your establishing shot, and you're going to get everything. Your master captures it, so you move from out in. Then you get your two-shot or your medium, and then you get your close-up, which is your coverage. And that, to me, is beautiful, because it's not only about speaking, it's also about listening. The great performances have great listening in them. It's not just when the character or the actor is speaking, it's when they're hearing what's being given to them, right? And you will have those moments where you have to do your coverage where the big name actor just isn't going to be there for it. So you have to get what you have to get from your scene. And when you're working with on a production of note, which is, you know, what we're all aiming for, you're going to have a director who knows the shit and knows what they're getting and what they're not getting and what they need and what they don't need. Before almost every project I do, I will have a conversation with my director. You don't always have that luxury. Sometimes in television, they're just too busy, but I will always request that and go over their vision. Now, they know that you get it, or they wouldn't have offered you the part, but man, for me, that's just the start. Everything's a minefield, and I want to get in there and discover it. So, to answer the first part of your question, when it's someone who doesn't work the same way that you do, or is just different, or isn't as experienced, that's going to happen a lot. It's going to happen a lot with kids. It's hard working with child actors, man. It's children and animals. It's freaking hard. I feel bad for directors. I don't know how the hell they do it. You're going to be working with kids, and you can't direct them. That's not your job. Sometimes you can help them forget that they're even on a movie set by incorporating improvisation prior to the scene, by having a conversation with them because sometimes they're so nervous, and they're worrying about their lines, right? Because they've learned their lines like crazy. They went to the audition and some of them forget it. Like they have it down pat, they're about to go in the room and then it's like, my lines. So you can help them get out of their own head by forcing them to put all their focus on you. Because when they put their focus on you, their focus isn't on themselves. And you can have amazing things happen just by pinching them, by giving them different behavior where you force them to come out of that shell that they're in. And by forcing them to listen and be honest, you're also going to get what you need. When it comes down to your coverage, however, a lot of times the actor, because you have to cheat with angles and lighting, isn't even going to be opposite where you are. If you're lucky, they might sit where Cés is sitting, and you're playing camera, but the way the scene was shot from the master and the wide, Cés was where Jack is, right? But you're playing it here now because it's your coverage, so it's cheated anyway. It takes an incredible amount of discipline, and that's where you have to do your homework and let your homework carry you into the scene. But it's like a mental prep. Your mental prep carries you to where you are, but you let it go once you're in the scene to be organic and alive and free, to be able to listen and respond. It's when you work with the great ones that I've been blessed to do a lot, it's literally like playing ping pong. It comes at you and it just goes right back and back and back and back, and then it's over and you go, man, that was amazing. I felt like we were doing a scene in class. It didn't even feel like work. You're just in that zone. It's hard. It's hard. It can frustrate the living crap out of you because you're working with an actor and you want to get what you want to get out of a scene and they just won't give it to you, or they read it the same way 10 damn times. And that takes a lot of discipline, man, because you don't want to waste an editor or a director's time. If they're going to give you 6 takes, make all 6 of them different. Don't give them the same thing twice. Make that editor's job as hard as possible, because at the end of the day, if you do that, what's going to end up on screen and hopefully doesn't hit the cutting room floor will be rich. But if you give the same take 3 or 4 different ways, most of the time the director won't even let you do that. He'll either come and let you know, or you'll just move on. So I don't think it's as big a deal, because when you have that gig, you work on it. You work on it. If it's starting out as a co-star role, you work on it. You know what you want from the scene. You know what your need is from that character. You know what's driving you into the scene, and you know how you feel about that person, which is why you got the job in the first place. And you don't worry about what you can control. You can only control about what can you control? Your preparation, whether it's in the part or in an audition. Everything else is just a cloud. It doesn't matter. Worry about what you can control. Everything else that comes is a gift.
So, can you talk about your first time being on set? Like, were you nervous? How did you feel?
I was happy. I was just overcome with joy, because it was my first professional production, so to speak, and it was what got me my SAG card back in 1998. I had done other work before then, but this was like the first actual official project that got seen in movies. Little Greek-American film called Astoria, and it had some great actors in it, some of them very well known. And for me, what I loved about it was that it was a character that I could express my culture and part of what I'd grown up in because I'm partially Greek. I was excited. I wasn't overly nervous because I knew what I wanted. My instincts had kicked in to the point where I trusted them. I didn't second guess myself anymore. So I wasn't as nervous. I wasn't nervous about the work. I was a little nervous about like, okay, I got to work with this actress now, or I got to work with that actor now. For me, even this deep in, the most heartbreaking thing is at the end of every play and at the end of every film, those people have become your family. You love them. There's this innate connection that happens. Even the ones that were assholes on set, they're your family for whatever, 6 weeks, 8 months, whatever you want to. And then you will never actually see those people in any environment like that ever again together in one place. You'll have a screening, but when you go to the screening, you'll say hello for 2 seconds, sit in your seat, and those 200 other people, 300 other people are in other seats. So there's just a nostalgia, and you think back and you go, man, I just had such a great, I wish I'd done this and I wish I'd said that. But it's also a great learning experience because then you get to your next project and you know you won't take any minute for granted, ever.
I've noticed so far, just in the limited things that I've done, and not much as an actor, but more on the production side of things, when I'm on a project and I'm making that connection that you just spoke about, it's so beautiful and it's, you know, it's very harmonious and it's this lovely thing, and you have this large amount of dopamine being released all the time and you're getting all this creative juice going, and it's incredible, and it can last for a month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe even only a week or 3 days, whatever. And then I've noticed that, at least me personally, I think other people probably have felt this way too, that when you get off of the project, you go into this dip, which I know is the high and low points of the career choices. You know, this is the career path that we've chosen, and I know it's the nature of it. But can you speak to how to keep sane when you get off of a project and you're waiting for your next one? Because it can be very hard, because all actors, all creative people are a bit neurotic, and we all get into these weird places when we come down into these lows. So can you speak to that and how you deal with those low points?
Absolutely. It's what I had spoken about before. Remember I said I can't sit still or do nothing because I'll go crazy. I'll go, it starts, and everybody's different. This doesn't mean it's the same for everyone, but just for me, I start questioning certain things. What am I doing wrong? What am I this? What am I that? It has nothing to do with that. And you'll hear all of the great ones. William H. Macy's like, I hate it when a job's done, because then I'm literally going, when is my next fucking job? I don't have a job. Like, call my agent, drive them crazy. So stay busy, live life. The same way you want to be present in every single moment of your play, be present in every single moment of your life. Do everything to the best of your ability, even the shit that you hate, because you will grow discipline. You will grow through that. Go and see plays. Go and see movies. Watch the great filmmakers that have come from other countries and see how with them it's all about cinematography. It's not all about dialogue. Watch Abbas Kiarostami from Iran, who just passed away. That guy did not even use actors in his film. He used real people until the last few projects where he used Juliette Binoche. And see how this man got incredible performances, which is why Tarantino and everybody has looked up to him. He filmed in a country where there were so many restrictions. It was like basically illegal to film. Watch Inarritu's early work. Look at Amores Perros and see how the man is such a genius at doing multi-plot filmmaking, which is storylines that happen at the same time, and it's all character driven. Look at look at Costa Rica, movies he's done. Anyway, there's so many great foreign directors. So watch their work. You can grow. You can grow by watching that and think, okay, she chose fear there. Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have done that. Watch how people listen and react and respond. And work on your own projects. Create your own work. These passion projects, Robbie had asked me about that. That's what had made me want to produce. It's just, okay, this is what I want to play. This is what I want to do. This is the story I want to tell. Find them. You guys are so, this is gold. The stories, the wisdom, the technique, everything that you have in Bill Alderson is a gift. Very few people, get to experience it. Don't take a second for granted. Don't be texting on your cell phone when you're doing a reading. Don't be on Instagram when other people are doing work. These right here are your peers. You're going to grow with them. You're going to see them on auditions. You're going to have them in some of your films. You're going to be doing plays with them. You're going to be doing scenes with them. You're not on this journey alone. Be a support system, because I guarantee you when they're there for you, you will never forget that. It's going to mean so much to you. It's going to mean so much to you. And that way, you're not in it alone. You're going to get together with other people who are in scene class and go, fuck, man, I just got off this project. Yeah, I know, I did too. What are you doing today? I don't know. What are you doing today? Have you read Italian-American Reconciliation? No, I haven't. I don't even know what that is. I will meet you at Samuel French, right? It's here in LA. It's got plays written by some of the greatest playwrights. Let's go read them. We can go sit in the back. They have coffee. It doesn't cost anything. Discover who the great playwrights are. Find out what their struggles were. Some of them are similar struggles that you have. See how they overcame them. Find what your drive is in certain characters and bring them to life. Go talk to Bill and say, can we have a scene night? He might say no, but use what you have. You won't know till you ask. You have other people that are in class with you. They're going through the same thing that you are, but they're growing with you at the same time. So it's not always about who's going to see the work. It's also about doing the work yourself or with other people in class. And do stuff that you'd never think you'd do. The last 6-7 years, I've taken on roles that I am freaking terrified of because I've just wanted to be challenged. They have scared the living shit out of me.
So keep yourself inspired at all costs.
It's not just inspired, because inspiration still has to come from something. You have to be active. Be active. Don't be reactive. Get scenes from screenplays. You know, there's a site now, you can go online, order the screenplay, do the scenes with other people in your class. When you're not in class, get together with all of these guys. You're all in the same position. Try on different coats, man, and see how they feel and how they're awkward. Because when you get signed by an agent, you have no idea the shit you're going to get sent out for. No idea. I mean, I end up getting called for a show called The Sweet Life on Deck, which used to be Zach and Cody, as a French art thief. It's like over-the-top humor in front of a live audience with a guy that tries to shoot a kid with a breadstick. And I'm like, but I had fun with it. I dove myself in. I watched the show, because you have to watch everything you're going out for. There's a certain style. There's a certain format. There's a way it's delivered. There's a way it's listened. There's a way it's dressed. And that's it. And 9 times out of 10, everybody will go in the audition, and it'll be like, okay, today's definitely like Mafia Day, because everybody's here dressed in black with a black leather jacket and a slick back haircut. But one guy comes in slightly different, and having been on the producing side of the table, you'll go, holy shit, that guy's brilliant. Not because of what he's wearing, but he didn't say the word fuck and I'm going to kill your mother the way everybody else did. He said it slightly differently, and the emphasis wasn't even on your mother. It was on the word fuck, but it had pain behind it. That's the guy who gets the part, because 10 other guys came in and did it brilliantly, but they all did it the same freaking way, you know?
You've been on so many sets. I mean, so many projects. It's so weird when you go in, because a lot of that crew's worked together already. I mean, they started working together, whether it's in pre-production, where they know. Usually, as an actor, sometimes you're the last one on set. What's the best advice you can give to actors for the best set etiquette when they come on? You're new. This is your first day on set. You've been that so many more times than all of us here. What's the best advice you can think of?
You know, you can't ever, first of all, you're not entitled to anything. Anytime anyone offers you a job, a million miracles had to happen for that film or that series to take place. And every one of those other guys is happy to be there too. Yeah, they might bitch, and yeah, they might complain, but that job, it means everything to them, even if it's not a high-paying job. So be pleasant, introduce yourself to people, but don't apologize for who you are. Be proud of who you are. Be confident in your craft, and people will gravitate towards you. Treat everyone with professionalism and courtesy. Some people are going to be assholes, most of the assholes on every first set, and they're not assholes, they're just doing their jobs, or first ADs. They treat people, they've got to get shit done because there's a schedule that's got to be complete, and that's who the director needs to be, his attack dog. But that's okay, because that first AD might be the director of the next project you're auditioning on. So you say thank you, you tell them they're great at doing their job, you thank every actor that you've worked with. You don't leave that set without making sure that people go, man, I know who that guy is. I remember that name. That's a good guy. He takes his work seriously, but he doesn't take himself seriously. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would say to everybody in this room, I dare you and I challenge you, and if this offends you, I apologize. But I dare you to find out what your God-given gift as an actor or actress is and pursue it with a reckless abandon. Like tomorrow isn't going to come. I dare you to do that. Find out what your gift is and chase that, baby.